We are going to start off the class of Tanya, part 2 of 38, with reading a little introduction. The Alter Rebbe
533 in the new book.
533 in the new book. That's chapter 38. Yeah, right before the 3rd of Nisan. So the Alter Rebbe is talking about over here the different varying degrees of godliness invested in different items. Now, what is the difference between daimim tzemech chaya medaber? Daimim is quiet. Chaya is tzomeach is plant life. Chaya alive, and medaber speaking. So it has to do with varying degrees of godliness, and it's important to remember that there's one God, but varying degrees of godliness, or there's one God, and there's different ways how we appreciate Him. That's something that's always important to keep in mind. That there's not one God for the rocks, and one God for the trees, and one God for the animals, and one God for the human beings. It's all one guy. It's all one guy. How come the stones can't speak? Well, it all depends on the degrees invested in it. The varied degrees of godliness invested in it. The more godliness, the more you can see how special it is. Let's read that introduction. It is axiomatic that the physical is incomparable to the spiritual. So much so that the philosophers agree that the evolution of the material from the spiritual is the most radical form of creation. Ex nihilo. The body, being physical, is incomparable to the soul, which is spiritual. The difference between them is obviously due to the difference between the respective divine life force creating them. The Alter Rebbe will now explain in what way the life force in the body and the life force in the soul differ. The difference is surely not one of varying degrees of revelation of divine life force, that in the body the life force is concealed, in the soul it stands revealed. In this respect, body and soul are alike. The veil of klipas nega, which obscures godliness, is in this physical world as a whole, envelops both body and soul. That means even the soul, which has a greater understanding of godliness, doesn't have an absolute understanding of godliness, right? It's limited. Therefore, just as the body does not attest to the fact that it is a product of divine creative power, when you look at a body, you don't see godliness, you see a body, an independent entity. So does the soul of a living creature belie the fact that its life-giving properties are godly. Thus, the divine soul is concealed equally in body and soul. The divine life force, is concealed equally in body and soul. The difference between them lies rather in the intensity of the godly life force that each contains. In the body, the life force is contracted, so that the body is physical. And in the soul, the life force is freely bestowed. It's important to remember that the neshama is a created entity. Right? The neshama is created. So the whole argument, when was the neshama's soul? It's a created entity. It's like the malachim were created on day 2. Some people say day 3 or day 4. Or day 5, day 2, 3, 5. But when you say created, automatically it's something not absolute godliness, and also it doesn't attest to the creator. You see a chair, I have no idea what the creator is. I know there's a chair here. Same thing is when you see a body, you don't see godliness. You see a body. Everything and everything in the world talks about how it exists. Nothing talks about how it got there. Let's look at how the Alter Rebbe explains it. 3rd of Nisan, page 519 in the old print. In the terms of concealment, bechinas hester panim, everything is the same. Meaning that even the soul is in a state of concealment. It's in a state of hidden. Meaning it doesn't testify that God exists. Levushim shavim. There was an object in the Beis Hamikdash, which was one of the greatest testaments that God existed, and that was the Aron HaBrit, the Ark of the Covenant. Why? Because although it was there, it didn't take up space. You can see it; it was there, but if you would measure from the wall to the Ark, it didn't take up space. So in a room 10 by 10, you measured from the wall to the Ark, it was 5 amot. What does that mean? Because this is what it's saying. Although it's physical, it represented that God is impossible of all impossibilities. But normally, when we look at something in the material world, what do we have to do? We have to think about the fact that you have to think about it. It's not straight up. That means it's hidden. So levushim shavim sha'ar, the garments with the light hides. The light hides, the godly light hides and conceals is equal, is identical. Because both the body and the soul are from this world. And both the body and soul are equally concealed from the fact that Hashem brings them into existence. What does it mean? By the concealment of the continent. So Hashem's energy is concealed. How does that happen? So we've spoken about back in chapter 2 when we've mentioned a few times something called Seder Ishtalshlos. This is the chain-like order of descent, or in other words, the what do you call it when the cars? The manufacturer. No, Henry Ford made the words are escaping me.
The production line?
Production line, right. It's thank you. It's a production line. The God put in place a production line to get from point A to point B. By the time you get to point at the end, you don't recognize what's in the beginning. Look at the materials in the beginning of the production line, and the final product.
Physics is a better metaphor for this.
Yeah, but I don't know physics.
On the scale of an atomic scale combined together to create an organism, you wouldn't remember or be able to notice the smaller components of it, but the expansion of this thing from a atomic scale to a larger scale.
But it's the other way around. It's not expansion. It's detraction. Meaning you have this great abundance of godly energy, and we have to make it smaller and dilute it.
Have you ever studied the amount of energy that comes out of the inside of a
No, I know it. I understand. What I'm saying is, with godliness, is it has tremendous energy, but in order to create the world, we have to dilute it, and we have to restrict it and constrict it, and in order, in that
make it small enough so that it's atomic.
Small enough. It's small enough that you look at this can of seltzer, you don't see godliness.
You forget the amount of atoms.
Right. Yeah. You forget that. Yeah. Thank you. I think it's a great example. You forget that it's godliness. What is this can? This can is not a can.
10 trillion atoms.
No. Not it comes from. God is infusing it with energy, animating energy, every single moment. Not that it comes from China and it's here. No, it's godliness right now.
No, that actually came. You're drinking yuzu Mandarin.
There you go. But
it's a kind of orange from China.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Well, the point is, it's actually godliness. The fact that you don't perceive it as such is because there's a tremendous amount of restriction and dilution and the whole process until you view it as a can of seltzer, and only you have to think about and ponder. Oh, how did it actually get there? He says it goes the descent. Going from all the world, from one world to the next world, but in many various constrictions and very strong ones. Until this godliness, until this godliness can take the form. Now, is this can good for you, bad for you? Is it poison? What is it? What's klipas nega? Klipas nega is neither. Is money good or bad? Neither. Depends how you use it.
From the subatomic to the atomic to the cellular to the human to the planetary to the solar system to the galaxy to the universe.
Yeah. So
this is literally what they're talking about.
That's what it is. So godliness is being watered down and compacted until we can see the world as the material world for what it is. Does that make it different types of godliness? No. There's only one type of godliness. Now, the next page is a massive note, and we're not going to read it. We're going to skip it. But it's a very, very worthwhile note to read. It's very long.
Can I read it out quickly?
No. What the Alter Rebbe is saying over here is that with the note, this note is from the Rebbe. And what he's saying is the words that chosen by the Alter Rebbe here are not arbitrary and it's not poetic. That means in order for godliness to descend, it has to go. In order for godliness to get from point A to point B, meaning up there to down here, there's different processes. Number one, it has to go down. Down means it's lowered. It lowers. Number two, it has to be limited. Because you can go down and it loses force, but it's still the same quality. But you have to limit the quality, and then there's powerful tzimtzumim, powerful constrictions, and finally, even the energy that comes down takes the clothing, takes the personality of what's called klipas nega. Remember, klipas nega is the translucent shell. It's not good, it's not bad. It's whatever you make it. The Torah is good, chazer bad. Seltzer, what's seltzer?
Delicious.
Seltzer is delicious. Seltzer is neither. And so the note on that page explains, the Rebbe goes on a very interesting essay, explains why all these steps are necessary. Because if these steps weren't necessary, you would never be able to get godliness to energize and animate and create a can of soda. It's just too great. Let's say, for example, you have a guy who's a genius, a crazy genius, but he can't necessarily teach what he has. There's an art in being able to relay the information. So before he teaches it, he has to think about it and take in various steps. How am I going to? What am I going to say? What am I going to not say? And imagine he's trying to teach us a simple calculus problem. So he has to tremendously restrict the information he has in his head, and he has to and has to go down all these different levels and think about what example am I going to use for this little kid, until the kid could understand. If he doesn't go through these processes, he'll never be able to communicate it to the student.
I just read the page and a half.
Yeah,
it's exactly my metaphor. He's literally describing the numerous tzimtzumim.
I said you had a good example.
The numerous tzimtzumim are the amounts of atoms. Then the powerful tzimtzumim are the scale from the energy within an atom to the energy that holds together a solar system.
I gave you credit. I said it was a good example.
Clothing itself in klipat noga. This is the physical world.
Do you not get complimented enough at home?
No. Really, I have no idea how little I was learning.
So now,
let's keep going though.
Yeah.
I want to get to what he's adding in.
So now, Alter Rebbe is going to open up a different door. So if everything is animated by God, if God's infusing everything with godliness and energy, right? And pretty much it's only a question of how much restriction. You're on a need-to-know basis. How much you know, how much security clearance you have, right? So in the rock is called silent, inanimate, silent. The Rebbe said more silent. Why? Because it silent doesn't testify to the presence of godliness. The tree more, right? The tree testifies more because it has more clearance, more godliness. So the question then is, if everything in the world is that way, how come we can slaughter and eat a cow, but we can't slaughter and eat a pig? They're both animals. What's the difference?
What's your suggestion?
What's the difference?
Yeah, what's your suggestion?
That's what it says to.
It's just basically it's as is, and take it as the commandment. There's no depth to the reason.
That's
So it goes out there, but answer that question. But he's going to expand it now. In the previous page, we said you have godliness, right, and then godliness is diluted, but it's still godliness and good. But then the godliness goes down a further step to where it's not good and not bad. Right? It's called klipas nega. Klipas nega means it depends on you, what you do with it. It's gray, we'll call it, right? It's undefined or unrefined. But that's not
It's not great. It's literally the field of play for us.
Yeah. But
It's where we get to interact.
right,
and
but
do
because
the most good.
But I mean, it's not white, it's not black, it's gray. When I tell you it's not good, it's not bad, it's uncharacterized.
50 Shades of Grey, would you say?
I don't know.
Sharnun.
But that's not the bottom level. It's a low level because everything above it still talks about godliness. Klippus Neged, it doesn't talk about godliness, but doesn't say anything bad. But there's a level below it. A level below it is Shalish Klippus Atmeis, the three holy impure Klippus. Impure Klippus, which means it's possible for godliness not only to descend to a state where it doesn't testify godliness, it's possible to descend to a state where it's anti-godliness. And that's where the difference between permitted and forbidden. By the way, permitted doesn't mean you have to do it. Just because it says OU on the label doesn't mean you have to stuff the whole thing in your mouth. Right? It says okay on the ice cream, which means God is commanding me to finish the tub. Right? No, God commands you. You gotta eat matzah. Permitted means you're allowed to. Doesn't mean you have to. The Alter Rebbe used to say, Toras Chassidim, was mitarnit megmen. It says that with megmen, what you're not allowed to do, you don't do.
You weren't paying attention that day.
Yeah, it says terminate. But you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to do. And with megmen, darfminit. And what you're allowed to, you don't have to do. Right? Just because it's OU, or okay, whatever it is, like Rabbi Gordon says, just because the cow is kosher, you don't have to eat the whole cow. Just because the wine is kosher, you don't have to drink the whole case. But yeah, exactly. But klipas, so why is it permitted? Because right now in the state of klipas nega, the godliness is suspended. It's waiting for you to elevate it, or God forbid, denigrate it. But what if I told you the godliness inside can never be elevated? So let's go the other way around. Is the person who is impure allowed to kiss the Sefer Torah? Don't answer me should. I'm asking allowed. Is the person that's impure, let's say, touch the dead body?
Yes. Only because I've seen you walk around with it, uninterested in who might be touching it.
Now the question is why?
But
that's where the idea of touching the siddur, touching the Torah with a siddur,
okay,
or touching with the talus. That's why, because if a person,
I don't do that.
Because a person who's impure, should not touch a Torah. Should not. That's why,
Who's impure?
someone who touched the dead body.
What?
Someone who touched the dead body, or a woman when she's on her period, should not.
Imagine you didn't go into a mikveh beforehand, and all the things that you might have done that make you impure.
Well, let's say you went to the bathroom, didn't wash your hands.
Let's say you touched a little, I don't know, like an insect, a cockroach.
A cockroach doesn't make you. A cockroach doesn't make you tummy.
Hold on.
It's not one of the.
Sharetz?
It's not a sharetz. It's not one of the shemana sharetz. It's not one of the.
Oh, I meant a sharetz.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
I wrote it.
There it
Anyway,
is.
the point is, when I talk about should you,
What insects are sharetz?
a rat,
Insects.
It's not insects. It's not insects.
Insects are not a single insect. Creepy crawlies.
No, those are mushroom. Anyway, off the subject. The point is, if a person who's tamei touches the Torah doesn't become impure. Why? Because the Torah is holiness. You can't contaminate it. So you can't bring it down. Now, just like there's things you can't bring down, there's things you can't bring up. You can't elevate. So Hashem says there's certain things you're permitted, you're allowed to interact with, because the godliness is not elevated, and it's not denigrated. It's waiting for you. But there are certain things you have to respect. So, for example, when you walk into a shul, shul's a holy place, whether you like it or not. So you treat it that way. You don't use the shul. The shul over here has one door here, one door there. You're not allowed to use the shul as a passageway. It's not a hallway. It's a shul, right? In the base of English, you weren't allowed to wear your shoes. It's not considered respectful. But there's certain things that are impure, and no matter how many blessings you make on it, and all your intent, you can't elevate it. That's why it's called asur. Sur means it's tied down. Mutar means it's untied, and that's why that defines what we're allowed to interact with and what we're not. Remember, our job is to live purposeful lives. What would be purposeful in doing something with no purpose? There's an old story. I don't know if it's true or not, or it's just a fable or to teach a lesson. That there was a guy in a Russian prison, and his job was he had to turn a big wheel, turn a big handle, and he imagined that on the other side of the wall he was turning a wheel and it was helping the water, and even though it was very hard work, he said, at least I'm helping crops grow, the water, the farms, all the people. When the sentence was over, the first thing he did was to go run to the other side of the wall to see what would I have been doing all these years, and it was nothing. And he passed out. Because all these years I was working hard for nothing. Oh, there was no point in it. He just wanted him to work. You think that's what God does to us? He sent us down just for nothing? No, everything has to be purposeful. So when Hashem says you do this or don't do that, He's telling you don't do it, is because Hashem's saying, I know. Don't go down that highway. It's blocked. You're not going to get to your destination. It's forbidden because it's not productive. That's why, because the godliness can't be elevated, therefore it's forbidden. Let's learn inside, and then we're going to go to, it says the fourth one. Hainu, kol advarim mutarim, all the things that are permissible, and hatahirim, and they are pure, but shabayim has in this world, umimena, and from this, v'al and through it, mushpoim devarim atmeim, the impure items, they get their life force. He bechinas mutzayis, because the klipas nega, the gray matter, they made a big deal. I saw a headline. I didn't actually read the article. They transported a dark matter, antimatter, or what was it? Very black matter, like on a truck for the first time. They were able to transport it. It was a big. So godliness is good, fine. Then you have things that the godliness is so restricted. So fine, I understand how they exist, because God's waiting for us to elevate. The question is, how does bad stuff exist? How do impurity exist? So the answer is, it only exists through the gray matter, only through the klipas nega. And that's what he says. The gray matter, the klipas nega, serves as a conduit, as a channel, as a middleman. Alpha became, even so. Ha'arda, the godly illumination, that the godliness that shines through the klipas nega to the forces of impurity, it's not the same. And as returns of constriction and expansion. In some things it's a lot more restricted, in something you have more. You remember going back to chapter 2, it said all the shamas come from the same source. How come some people are holier, some people are more righteous? So we said, because some neshamas, they descend straight, they don't go through the process. Because it's not only items for the table, or for example, a tree or the animal goes through the process. Every neshamas go through the process too. So some neshamas, they take the express train. Their neshama is not affected by it, like Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu went straight, bam. So he felt higher. Yeah. Netzach Havatzilus.
Okay.
So and then he. So the it's Moshe and Avot were from Atzilus.
Yeah. Moshe and who?
And Avot were from Atzilus. So and Moshe's neshama didn't go through any process.
Who
so
David?
I don't know. So he didn't feel.
There wouldn't be Malchut about it?
I don't know. I'm saying I don't know. I'm not saying no. I'm saying I don't know. So Moshe didn't feel any restriction, but another person, even though they're still connected, there's still life force there, but because they go through a whole process, they don't feel it as much. Same thing, or similar. When the godliness goes through such a process, so much concealment, you don't feel the godliness. So we'll finish off by reading this note. The difference between concealment, hester, and contraction. Oh, this is a great note, by the way. There's a difference between contraction and concealment. You have a window; it's too much light. So I put a piece of board over the window. I conceal the light, but then there's no light. So what do? I drill a hole. So now light's coming through. So you have a lot less light, but the light that's coming through is pure. It's still too much. So what do? I put curtains there. So now I'm diluting the quality of the light. So there's Helim and Hester. Hester is you hide the light. Helim is you dilute it. And so that's what the note is. He's saying it over here. So suppose, what we did. So too, with regards to our subject, Klipos Nega is the thick curtain which veils the divine creative force equally from all creatures in this world. This curtain light varies, however, from one creature to another. Next week, we'll learn, next time we learn, Alter Rebbe is now going to explain the differences between one item and another item, permissible. He builds up. It's very, very nice.
You said next week.
No, actually, it's not going to be next week. It's going to be in 3 weeks. Not the week after April 9th. April 9th, so 7 days. Then will be April 26th, whatever.
We're getting older.
Not April 9th. No, it's April 16th. Yeah.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. And sell your comments. Get matzah. Have a good week, everyone. Kasher for Elichem Pesach. No? Yes? No?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. Probably.